Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we will talk about the difference between statically versus dynamically typed languages, what are data types, then introduce data types in Go. So let's get started. Go is statically typed programming language. This means that variables always have a specific type, and the type cannot be changed. If you work with dynamically typed programming languages like JavaScript or Python, this is an important concept to learn. How I like to imagine statically typed language is like a shape sorter toy. Once we declare a variable, memory is allocated for it, and we cannot change it. It's like this defined shape space on this toy here. We can just assign values to it, putting these shape pieces inside the shape spaces. If we try to assign the wrong value to a declared variable, the compiler will throw us an error. It is like we are trying to fit those shapes into the wrong spaces. Let's see what are the differences between statically and dynamically typed languages. Statically typed, also known as strongly typed languages, will perform type checking at compile time, and dynamically typed, also known as loosely typed or weakly typed languages, perform type checking at the runtime. This means that code written in statically typed language, like Go, won't compile if it contains errors. Types are used incorrectly. Code written in dynamically typed languages like JavaScript can compile but won't run properly or at all. When I said won't run properly, I mean that at runtime types are converted from one type to another in order to execute the program. Also, with statically typed languages, you need to declare the data types of your variables before using them. And with dynamically typed languages, you don't. In Go, you have an option here to either explicitly declare a type or to let a compiler infer the type. Here we can see an example. For our examples in Go, we will explicitly declare types just to help us see the differences clearly. If you want to learn more about variable declaration in Go, please check my other video. Here we have a Go example on the left side and JavaScript example on the right side. In both examples, we are creating a variable called age and assign a value 34 to it. Difference is that in Go example, on the first line var age int, we declare the variable and also define its type as int. In JavaScript, variable data type is determined based on assigned value. There are always pros and cons using dynamically or statically typed languages. Some pros for using statically typed language is that a compiler can catch some bugs, better performance, code editors can offer code completion, etc. Some pros using dynamically typed language, it's faster to write software, no need to wait for a compiler to compile code, and shorter learning curve. What bugs our Go compiler can catch for us? We can see one example in Go and same example in JavaScript. In both examples, we are creating variables called age and years and assign them values. For age is integer 34 and years is a string 5. And then on the last line, we are printing the message my age in 5 years, age plus years. Let's open those examples in text editor and see what will happen when we run those programs. First, let's see Go example. When we try to run, our program won't even compile. Compiler will throw an error, invalid operation, age plus years. Mismatched types int and string. Now let's open and run JavaScript program. it will run and print my age in 5 years 345, and we expected 39. One more example. Here we have Go code, same example in JavaScript. The intention was to add 5 to my age and save in my age, but we made a mistake and type mAge instead. And JavaScript will create a new variable named mAge for us and assign 39 to it, while Go compiler will throw an error, undeclared name mAge. What is a data type? In programming, a data type is a classification that specifies which kind of value a variable may hold. Data types allow programming languages to understand how to operate on and process data. For example, if a data type is a string, it is possible to check the length of it or to concatenate it with another string. In Go language, we have primitive and composite data types. Primitive data types are Boolean, numeric, and strings. Composite data types are array, struct, pointer, function, interface, slice, map, and channel. In this video, we will focus on primitive data types. Composite data types we will explain in future videos. Let's start with Boolean data type. A Boolean data type can only have two values, true and false, and in code it is represented with a bool keyword. The zero value for a bool is false. Next, we have numeric types. We have three types of numeric data types in Go: integers, floating point, and complex values. Integers are positive, zero, or negative whole numbers. To declare integer in Go, we can use var age int, age equal 34. For example, integer 0 value is 0. We have two types of integers, signed and unsigned. Signed integers hold negative, 0, and positive whole numbers. Unsigned integers hold 0 and positive whole numbers. Here we can see a table with types of signed integers and their values. We have int type, which size depends on underlying architecture. If we are using 32-bit architecture, integer size will be 32-bit, and for 64-bit architecture, size usually will be 64. In this table we can see all unsigned types and their values. uint type size depends also on underlying architecture, same as int. Type uint_ptr in Go is an integer type that is large enough to contain a bit pattern of any pointer. It is an integer representation of a memory address. For integers, rule of thumb is always use int unless you have a specific reason to use a size or unsigned integer type. We also have two aliases for integers. One is byte, which is an alias for uint8, and rune, which is an alias for int32. Next we have floating point numbers. Floating point numbers represent the real numbers in Go language. We have two types, float32 and float64. Like the integer types, the zero value for floating point type is 0. When we don't provide type, float64 is a default type. Complex numbers are used to deal with real and imaginary numbers. We are using floating point numbers in complex numbers for the real and imaginary parts. Complex 64 uses float32 values to represent the real and imaginary parts, and complex 128 uses float64 values for that. The zero value for complex numbers has 0 assigned to both the real and imaginary parts of the number. Strings are sequence of numbers, letters, and symbols surrounded by double quotes. Also, in Go, we can define strings using backtick symbol. More about that in future videos. Strings in Go are immutable. Once we create a string, it is impossible to change the content of it. The zero value of the string is empty string. Here are some string examples. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. In the next videos, we will go into details about each data type. Until the next time, bye!